Welcome back to the GSMC College Football Podcast, presented to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Today is Tuesday, May 27th. Had a good show for you so far. We're going to keep going, keep pushing on. We're going to talk Penn State, Ohio State. Who's more likely to win a Big Ten championship, win a national championship this year? Who's more likely to be standing when the season ends next year in 2025, 2026, I guess, in January? But who's more likely to still be standing? Is it the Buckeyes? Is it the Nittany Lions? We're going to dive into it. So when you're looking at quarterback, Penn State, I think, has an easy advantage here over Ohio State. Ohio State losing Will Howard, their transfer that played for them last season, replacing him with most likely going to be Julian Sayin, a guy that does have a lot of potential, does have a lot of upside. Former five-star quarterback, transferred from Alabama after Nick Saban retired, kind of sat all of last season just learning behind Will Howard, learning the offense. He should take control this year. Lincoln Keenholz kind of sounds like is still in competition, but if I had to bet, I would say this is Julian Sayin's job. I think that just kind of seems how it's going to be played out. However, though, when you look on the other side for Penn State, yes, there's Julian Sayin, but there's a guy in Drew Allar, a former five-star quarterback in his own right, but a guy that's coming into his third year as a starter at Penn State, really should be growing into his own this year. Had a much stronger 2024 campaign than he did in 2023. Kind of helped cut down on some of his bad decision-making. Showed a little more confidence in his arm, in his pass-throwing abilities. This is a guy, though, that I think with another year as the starter, another year of confidence, and you still have your offensive coordinator there, you still have some of your weapons around you. Drew Allar, this is your time. You really got to put it all together this year and showcase what makes you so tantalizing as an NFL prospect. 6'5", 235, can throw the ball 75 yards, can scramble when needed, smart quarterback, a guy that's just got to cut down on those poor decisions sometimes and settle down. Seems to get a little rattled at times, especially in big-time matchups. That's going to be one of the things for Drew Allar. Can he finish this year? He had that crucial interception in the semifinal against Notre Dame that kind of sealed Penn State's season. Can he not do that this year? Can he lead Penn State on a game-winning drive to beat Ohio State, to beat a team of that caliber? We're going to have to wait and see. It's going to be on Drew Allar this year, though. But I think when you're looking at the comparison between him and Julian Sayin, this is a clear win for Penn State, just like the backfield is too here. This is a clear win for Penn State as well. Carnell, Nick Singleton, the dynamic duo returning, probably the best backfield in the country. I think these two guys are two of the top 5 running backs in the country, regardless of where they play. Both ran for over 1,000 yards last year. Both kind of have a different abilities to them. Nick Singleton, much more of kind of a dynamic threat. Carnell, punisher, bruising runner, but a guy that wears defenses down. I think they're the best 1-2 punch in the country. Ohio State, they're going to be hurting this year after losing Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson. You have James Peoples, sophomore, should kind of step up. I think C.J. Donaldson is going to be in the mix too. Watch out for freshman Bo Jackson coming out of Cleveland via SJ, a guy that's really got a lot of potential at the running back position. But this is a young, inexperienced room for the Buckeyes. I think it goes to Penn State again. See, here's where the tide turns, though, in pass catching. Ohio State, you have one of the best pass catching units in the country returning, and Penn State, still another year of question marks there. Jeremiah Smith is back. Carnell Tate is back. Brandon Innes, Mylan Graham, all former 5-star wideouts, all guys that are super impressive, kind of going to round out that wide receiver room. Then you also bring in Max Clare from Purdue. Big-time transfer addition, a guy that kind of led Purdue's offense last year as pretty much their only legitimate receiving option. Should have a lot more room to operate for Ohio State when you have guys like Jeremiah Smith, like Carnell Tate, Brandon Innes on the outside. This is a guy in Max Clare that's going to feast across the middle of the field. Big-time red zone threat. A guy that's really going to have... I would not be surprised if his yards per target goes way up, or yards per reception, whatever one. It's going to go way up, because this is going to be a guy that's going to catch 15, 20-yard passes across the middle. That's going to be wide open because of what those other receivers can do for Ohio State. Penn State, this is much more a question mark. You lose Tyler Warren. That's obviously your biggest loss. You lose Harrison Wallace to Ole Miss. Lose a couple others. Only Liam Clifford returns. You do bring in Devontae Ross from Troy, Kyron Hudson from USC, and then you bring in Traber Pena from Syracuse. Traber Pena, that's going to be your main guy, it sounds like. A guy that's going to be a 5th, 6th-year player in college. Had 980 receiving yards last year, was kind of Kyle McCord's go-to option for the Syracuse Orange. Should kind of take over that role for Penn State and at least give Drew Allar somebody that he can check the ball down to when it kind of gets all messed up. But I'm giving this one to Ohio State. I think that's the easy option. Offensive line, I think this is more of a toss-up. You have Carson Hinsman, Tegra Shabola returning for Ohio State, Ethan Onainwa coming in at left tackle from Rice. Configuration is going to kind of depend on a couple of different guys. I think Penn State, though, there's a lot more continuity here. So I'd probably give this to Penn State. This is going to be one of the strengths of this 2025 Nittany Lion team. You still have Nick Dawkins, Drew Shelton, Vega Ioane, Anthony Donko, Nolan Rucci, all got a ton of experience last year. All really had big-time production for the Nittany Lions. But guys that are going to step right in to those starting roles still have a lot of continuity there. This is a unit that's meshed well, that's played together for a long time. I think Penn State, this is the easy win too. Their offensive line gets the edge here. D-line, a little more of a question mark. Ohio State, losing Jack Sawyer, losing JT Tuimoloau, they're going to need reinforcements. Caden Curry's going to take over one of these spots. And then you bring in Bo Atkinson from North Carolina, the Tar Heels leading rusher last year, or pass rusher last year, a guy that should really kind of step into a bigger role. And then Penn State, you're losing Abdul Carter. Pretty big loss there, number 3rd overall pick to the New York Giants, a guy that could do a whole lot for them on the defensive line. But not all is lost. You still have Danny Dennis-Sutton coming back, guy that had 8.5 sacks last year, 13 tackles for loss, and really stepped up his play to play his best during their college football playoff run. That's going to be the guy that's going to anchor this Nittany Lion defensive line. It is important to note, too, that Tom Allen is out as defensive coordinator, and in comes Jim Knowles, replacing him as a Penn State Nittany Lions defensive coordinator. Jim Knowles coming in from Ohio State. That was a big addition. And a big loss for the Buckeyes, a big pickup for the Nittany Lions. You also have Zariah Fisher still around for the Nittany Lions. Guy that could factor in if he's healthy, kind of missed most of 2024. D-tackle then, you got Zane Durant coming back. He had a big 24 season, 42 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. There's a couple different guys kind of going to compete, but Danny Dennis-Sutton, Zane Durant returning to kind of anchor that D-line. Those are big wins. If you look at the rest then, Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, 2 stars returning for Ohio State at linebacker, safety respectively. And then you have Davison and Benson, Jermaine Matthews kind of locking up the corner spots. So secondary for Ohio State kind of looks pretty settled. Linebacker looks a little more settled for Penn State right now. Don DeLuca, Tony Rojas, both returning after starting last year. Tony Rojas kind of struggled at times, but definitely a guy that could be a bounce-back candidate, a guy that could shine, kind of showcase what he can do at full potential, at full health. Cornerback room is very deep. You're losing Jalen Kimber, but there's a couple different guys that are all kind of in contention. A.J. Harris should really lock up one cornerback spot. And then Jalen Reed, Kevin Winston are both going to be around at safety. So Zakee Wheatley coming in, probably going to take over one role. DeJuan Lane could also start after having a pretty solid role as a true freshman. but that's going to be kind of a toss-up. When you look, though, at, I think, the overall makeup of these two programs, I think Penn State has the edge right now. Ohio State, yes, they're deep in certain spots. Oh, wide receiver, really, really deep room. Cornerback, safety, kind of some of those positions for them. Super deep, talented rooms. But when you look top to bottom, when you look at returning guys, when you look at who's still there, I think it's Penn State. You still have a Greer quarterback. You still have probably the best backfield in the country. You have one of the better O-line units in the Big Ten, if not throughout the nation. You have two guys on defensive line that are really big difference makers returning in Danny Dennis-Sutton and Zane Durant. You have two starting linebackers returning. You have a couple of your secondary guys returning. This is a deep Penn State team. It's an experienced Penn State team. And that's one that could really make some noise this year and potentially make a college football playoff run. So right now, we're going to take our last break of the show. When we come back, we're going to continue on the Big Ten theme, and we're going to continue on with my Big Ten rankings. So stick around. We'll be right back on the GSMC College Football Podcast.